the board see fit to approve it this evening.
Okay. Any comments from the board about this application? Mr. Mandel?
I'd like to be sure we include the inclusion of the EV charging stations in the approval.
Well, what are the specifics of that?
I'd like to see 10, 3 in the school area and 7 in the other areas.
I'll just speak to my client about that.
Mr. Mellon, if you would.
Yeah. President, anything else before we do that? Any other questions I can raise with the client while we're here?
I think we've covered questions,
And
okay.
If anything else comes up in deliberation.
Sure.
Do we have an ordinance to specify that they
Not
have to
yet.
have that many?
No, we don't.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was questioning why that particular number.
I just,
Yeah. Seems high.
there's a fair number of spaces, and we're moving more and more towards EV vehicles.
You have an idea what the relative cost is of those stations?
About $500 if you do it in your house, other than running the power.
I will say that we're seeing more of these coming, voluntarily from the office park owners. So I might feel inclined to let them come up with a number that will work for them.
It's
Well,
also,
somebody asked
it's an amenity for tenants.
It's an amenity. It's attractive for them, but at the same time, you don't want to necessarily take parking spaces that might not be used if you need all of them. So I would kind of defer to them operationally to see what kind of works from them.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. All right. Any other comments from the board? All right. I just have one comment. I think the overall presentation is very strong, except that I have concern about the buffer space. It's a lot to absorb that, even with the attention called out by your planner witness for the Green Acres property. That's difficult for me to get over, and so I'm struggling with that quite a bit.
Would more landscaping help or some other decorative feature?
That buffer is there for a reason, and even though we get to look at every single property individually, thankfully, it creates an opportunity where others might feel they get the same chance to take away those buffers. And in our master plan, that was a very specific target that we put on there, and the only thing saving it is the current use of those facilities and the fact that's green space,
I don't
green
think
acre
we'd be here if
protected.
there were houses there, quite frankly.
Yeah, that buffer is there because it's zoned R3.
Right.
If we rezoned it to open space, which is what it really is, you wouldn't need that buffer, and your argument becomes moot.
That's an excellent point.
Up to now, we've had no reason ever to change the zone. We could, but we've never had the reason to up to now.
Yeah,
You agree
some
with that?
some municipalities use their sort of lowest density residential zone for their parks. Others create a park zone, and you have a park zone here in Parsippany. So there's no reason why we couldn't choose to rezone parks, RCW. At the same point, it is a Green Acres property, so it's not likely to change one way or another. But it's really
And we
it's
have
really a
no,
decision
the township
for the
has no
township.
plans to build anything else on that property.
You're restricted from building, you're restricted from building things with the Green Acre stipulations.
Correct.
But we can build Green Acre stuff.
Right,
exactly.
to
Yeah,
develop
yeah.
it further as a park.
Yeah.
Which we did talk about
Okay.
recently. More on the side of the lot that's closer to the engineering office, because we're looking for other sites to put further township buildings.
Oh.
Okay. Well, with that being said, I believe there's an opportunity to entertain a motion. Does anybody like to present a motion?
Before there's a motion, maybe I should read the conditions I've collected into the record so that the
Okay.
motion can be made subject to these conditions. One, the flagpole height shall be lowered to 20 feet. 2, sidewalk shall be added from the parking field to the proposed daycare facility as described in testimony.
There may be a modified sidewalk, I think is what will end up happening there, that may affect the coverage number slightly.
Understood.
Okay.
3, the board understands that an additional freestanding sign will be added on 202. The applicant shall revise the plans to reflect the size and the number of signs.
That'll be a sign, we'll identify Primrose.
4, the applicant shall create a maintenance plan for the existing landscaping and the trees on site to the satisfaction of the board engineer and planner. And 5, tell me if I got this one right, 15 additional trees will be added along Parsippany Boulevard to the satisfaction of the board engineer and planner.
Yeah.
And plus whatever we're gonna do with EV vehicles. Do you wanna talk to your client and propose a number?
I'll take a brief recess and ask the question, I'm not sure we.
We're not even gonna go into
right
recess,
now.
just take.
Well, if that was something that would attract potential renters to that property, they would want to do it anyway.
I would think so. I think the market would dictate that.
Yeah,
If you're getting people that are.
yeah, I don't think we should be mandating that. Fine. If they think it's too soon, I don't know anybody that owns one of those vehicles. And it's gonna take up spaces that they need.
The idea is that it's all our interest in combustion engines on the road. Even though we're all driving.
That's more where the parking lot is. And there's supposed to be like.
You know what else, Susan?
It doesn't seem really that's crazy.
I just, the way this is. That's great.
On the record,
Sure.
Right.
Mr. Melman?
my client has volunteered to put in 2 charging stations by the office building, and obviously if demand requires there be more in the future, they'd consider it, but they commit to doing 2 up front.
Is it,
It's fine.
Well, we don't have the ability
I
to
know.
require further, so.
okay. So noted in the record?
So noted.
Okay,
How many did we come with?
2.
2, okay.
Okay.
Good.
So based on what was just discussed, do we have a motion to accept or reject at this time?
I so move to accept.
All right. Second?
Second Hernandez.
All right. Roll call, please.
Mr. Reparo.
Yes.
Councilman DePiero.
Yes,
Mr. Fajiri.
Yes.
Ms. Hernandez.
Yes.
Mr. Mendel.
Yes.
Ms. Veely.
Yes.
Chairman Van Aiken.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
your time
Good luck.
tonight.
All right.
One more thing.
Yep. So I think the last piece on the agenda is discussion about the master plan amendment. Is this yours?
This is mine, and I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman, because I know it's getting late. So we just adopted the master plan, now we're ready to amend it. Didn't take long, right. Councilman DePiero and a couple other folks raised the 2 concerns with the master plan that was adopted last month. One is dealing with tattoo parlors and body piercing, and adult entertainment uses, that category. And then the other piece is what's called amusement parlors. So I'll just take the first one. So tattoo parlors, body piercing, and adult uses, those are, quote, personal services. That language in the master plan, and it's found on 3 different places. It's, I believe, pages 91, 92, and 139.
I didn't catch it on 139.
So, yeah, that's those 3. So, let me just tell you the intent here, and then I will take a mea culpa, because it's me who wrote this language, which is problematic. So, this is a recommendation that dates back at least to 2014, which was essentially to come up with regulations that would better control these types of uses.
And I got it.
No, 139.
That's all right.
So, let's see, 91. So, the problem here, and the intent was just to carry that recommendation forward. The problem was that, I think in an effort to be efficient, I kind of grouped this with a general discussion about uses in business zones where we were talking about being a little bit more flexible on some uses. So when you put all that in the same paragraph, I can see how a reasonable person could read this and think that we were encouraging tattoo parlors, adult uses, and body piercing. That was not the intent. Basically, the language on 91, 92, I think it is very similar, and then 139 talks about, let me just go there. Let's see.
That's the last page.
Explore regulations to control location of tattoo parlors, body piercing shops, and adult-oriented businesses. Now that's less problematic actually, but the first two talks about exploring where they might be appropriate. So I'm totally fine with deleting all of that language. It's not a major recommendation of the plan. If we deleted it, basically it's the status quo, which has been unchanged for at least the last 6 years.
I wish I had seen it before we published
It's
this
okay.
document.
It's okay. That's why you read it later. You always catch things. I've caught a couple little
No,
typos too.
Yeah, it's a
But-
good call out. I think what you're suggesting is just to remove the specific identification
yep.
of those,
Yep.
Just like you
businesses.
heard this planner tonight, okay, refer to the master plan supporting
Yes,
their
yes.
application. You're
Yeah.
gonna have these people coming here and pointing to the.
Right, and
Right.
that was
we
not the
can't-
intent.
We can't
Yep.
ban them, but.
We might as well just not mention
Let's
it.
not put up the sign. to welcome
Exactly,
them.
exactly.
Right.
Yep.
So then the other one is dealing with kind of a quirk of your code, which is dates to the early 80s when I guess there were a lot of kids in arcades. It was Atari, it was coming, I don't know, I was young then, so I've talked to my husband about that. He remembers, I don't. But anyway, this language in the code which talks about amusement machines and amusement parlors. And amusement parlors are described in the zoning code, and it only refers to arcades, really. And so we looked at that and thought, well, nobody's building arcades anymore. Why even treat them differently than just regular businesses? But the problem is that it refers to another section in your code which deals with amusement machines, and that definition is a little bit broad and seems to include pool tables and a couple other things. I also think no one's building those either, but in any case,
Have you been to Recess recently?
well, is it new?
Recess?
Yeah.
Is it a new
There's
facility?
a new bar. It's a bar.
They're different, but they're a little bit different than the old pool halls, right?
Well, they have, I don't know, what, half a dozen pool tables?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
what I
we're
mean
not-
is, I was talking to Jen Veely
We're not-
about this
We're not
earlier.
talking about banning them, we're just.
Yeah,
Okay.
just
Take the
talking.
language out.
Exactly, exactly. They're currently allowed. They're conditional use in B1, B2, B3. If there are fewer than 5 machines, they're just considered an accessory, and that's okay. This was just, we saw some language that we thought might be archaic, and we could shorten the code a little bit. But if it's not worth rocking the boat. That's another one that's not this is really not a high priority recommendation. So we're fine deleting this language as well.
Okay. So the recommendation is to delete language. Does anybody have an opinion for or against that?
No, get rid of it.
The board is so inclined, I think Susan and I could prepare the necessary amendment and resolution. We could run them both in the same night.
Yeah.
We'll do that not at our next meeting, but the following meeting, because it will require 10 days' notice.
We'll do a public hearing. Yeah.
And a public hearing
Yeah.
on, unfortunately, any amendment to the
Right.
master plan. We largely do large-scale ones. Even this one will
Right.
require that notice.
So it'll just be track change. It shows the strikeout text, what's being deleted.
That's it.
So,
Very simple, but put the ad in the paper, do the 10-day notice, and we can have that ready for the meeting a month from now.
All right. That sounds acceptable.
Okay,
great.
good.
That's it.
Just one question if I could.
Sure.
The mayor's announced a number of times, that we haven't had a master plan since 1977. We have done reviews of the master plan every 5 years since 1977. So we have always upgraded the master plan.
Yes.
The implication is we haven't done anything since 1977. And I just want to confirm.
That's
We've done
correct.
upgrades every 5 years.
You've met every statutory requirement to do
Exactly.
master plan reexamination.
Okay, thank you.
I think he means that it's been since the 70s when a comprehensive new full master plan was done. But yes,
Yeah, when we did
you
the
have continued
master-
to engage in master planning activities for the last decades.
When we did the master plan in 1977, too late to catch all these 40 by 40s in Lake Hiawatha, you know,
Mhm.
and all throughout town.
Yeah.
And every time they wanna subdivide a 100 by 100 lot into two non-conforming lots, I always object because I object to take a conforming lot and produce a non-conforming lot.
Mhm.
That's always been my objection, and I voted against most of them. The only way around that I could see is if, because the builders build McMansions right up to, you know, every impervious foot is occupied in that case. Is if we did what Tom Dinsmore suggested many years ago, is that we provide something to scale, the house has to be scaled down. It cannot be McMansions. If we're in a zone that's R3 or R4, they cannot build McMansions, you know? So you don't have a 5-bedroom house next to a 3-bedroom
Bungalow.
log
Yeah.
cabin.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah, we have that in the master plan to look at the scale of homes in those sort of smaller lot neighborhoods. And there's a lot of ways that you can get at that, and which is why we didn't settle on a one recommendation, because I think it actually needs to be looked at a little bit more closely. It's not an easy
I
thing,
mean,
actually.
FAR works well, but
Until it doesn't.
Until it doesn't.
And
right.
it's a little harder, I think, to administer.
It's very difficult to enforce in an
on that
office of two
side.
people.
I think it's hard for the layperson to understand, is one problem with it too. But there's a lot of things that you can look at in terms of setbacks and requiring setbacks on upper stories too, so they can't just build a huge box. Architecturally, there are things you can do in terms of design guidelines, and that helps reduce the appearance of it.
How
you know.
about just the definition of height? Is that what you meant by
Definition of
FA?
height,
I mean,
it's a-
that
yeah.
seems to be like a sliding scale, to say the least, depending on where something's being built.
Yeah, I mean, 35 feet is the standard in zoning codes, but no one ever built to 35 feet, right? But now they do. So maybe the answer is something like 32 feet, or, you know, those few feet actually make a difference visually.
Can I suggest on that perhaps Susan primarily, and I'll assist, be authorized to, while ordinances normally originate at the township council level, we're always free to make recommendations to the township council of changes we'd like to see. Perhaps Susan should undertake that work so that we can present something to the township council that will, you know, limit McMansions, particularly in our smaller lot areas.
And would that be agreed to by the planning board before it's presented to the council?
Yeah, she
we-
would do it,
we-
she'd
we
bring it
bring
here,
it for
we would.
discussion.
It would be a recommendation from the planning board to the council.
Right.
Yep,
How do you feel about that, Councilman?
That's what I would like to see us do that.
great,
Okay,
great.
I support that also.
Otherwise, I have to continue to vote no to produce non-conforming lots in those areas.
Well, that may still be the case.
We've got a lot of good reasons to vote no.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things you can
Yeah, you
explore
get,
there.
and in fact, that particular planner, I asked him a couple of times. He doesn't even look in my direction anymore. Because he would come, you know, and want to subdivide in Lake Hiawatha. And he would say it's consistent with the area, you know?
That's the standard argument when you're
Exactly.
faced with a lot
And I'm
of
saying
non-conforming.
That area was produced before we had a master plan.
Right,
In
right.
1977.
All right. Well, Susan, I think you gotta go ahead to move forward with the
That's a good
recommendation.
idea. And whatever, like with the height thing, is it, if it's on a hill, is it
Yeah.
from street level? Is
Right.
it the average?
Right.
You know, just to be clear.
Yeah.
It's usually ground level at the house.
I know, but what
Because
if the
we
house
got-
is on a
We got
rise?
snookered with the Sheridan. Because the old ordinance used to say from the street level, and if you look at the Sheridan from the street, the ground level at the Sheridan is almost a story below the curb level, you know, and so they
Yeah.
got 7 stories, if you ever count, even though there's a 6-story limit restriction, they got 7 stories because we went from the street level.
Yeah.
We had to change it after that.
I think you also want to make sure, and my memory is that this might need to be fixed, that it's the ground level before construction, so, because you don't want them to be able to build up the lot and then start from there,
That, right.
right?
yeah.
So, they're clever.
Yeah.
Builders, they find ways, they find loopholes.
And
Right,
I
so we'll look at that.
I certainly agree that for the most part, we're trying to prevent any kind of excessive development, but we still want to make sure that that neighborhood can continue to revitalize itself and that it's considered to be worthy of investment, so.
Right.
Yeah, you don't wanna throw up unnecessary roadblocks, but I find that if you make it so easy just to build a big box,
That's what they do.
then that's
That's all you'll
what
get.
you're gonna see throughout the
And it
neighborhood.
devalues, I'm sorry, it
Oh.
just
Yeah.
devalues.
Yeah.
Can you define the total square footage of the house in relationship to the square footage of the lot?
Yep, that's FAR,
That's FAR.
or area ratio.
We already do.
Yep.
So therefore, that kind of eliminates the McMansion on a small lot.
Here's one caveat though with FAR is that that's a zoning board variance.
And they always
Now,
say
now a
yes.
single family home would typically be a zoning board anyway.
That's the
but-
board of yes.
But that's always, that's always been a reason not to do FAR, and
Yeah.
my experience is that, people don't wanna have to send them to the zoning board.
You know, over in Mazdabrook, to build the biggest size houses, Mossberg didn't put patios in the back. You got patio door with
Nothing there.
going no place. So every one of those people that bought those homes
Then they had to come in and get a variance.
had to go get a
Yeah.
variance to build a deck or a patio in the
For your
back.
information, his wife just died today.
I know, I know.
Too
The
bad.
weekend.
I'm going tomorrow morning.
She passed away on the
Yeah.
weekend.
Yeah, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning.
We should probably adjourn and go off record at this point, if nothing else.
We're
Okay.
done, we're done.
All right, very good. All right,
Okay.
I'll accept the motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Second for Jerry.
All in favor?